everyone, this is For the Love of Comics, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about Castle Waiting, Linda Medley's warm, funny and whimsical comic series. We'll be asking, what is Castle Waiting, what's it about, and what makes it so special. As usual, over the next week we'll post another video or two about this wonderful comic series, but for now let's get right into what is Castle Waiting. Castle Waiting is an American black and white comic series written and drawn by Linda Medley. Since 1996, it's been published in the form of single issues or floppies, both by Medley herself as well as through small presses. The complete story so far has also been compiled in 2 collected volumes by Fantagraphics, which is how I read the series. Castle Waiting is a fabulous feminist fairy tale, which uses many traditional fairy tale tropes but also tells a story that's quite unlike any fairy tale you may have read. The prologue to the story, The Curse of Brambly Hedge, is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but it makes it pretty clear that the story isn't going to focus on the hero and the heroine of that story, but on those left behind after those characters have left to live out their happily ever after. The ivy and bramble-covered castle that they leave behind is the castle of the title, a place of refuge for characters from all over fleeing persecution. The castle is a place where characters, both human and not so human, come to be safe and to live lives that are comfortingly mundane. The story begins with Lady Jane Solander, who's pregnant and on the run and making for Castle Waiting because she believes she'll be safe there. The early stories feature Lady Jane and the reader getting to know the motley crew that lives in the castle. Rackham, the castle steward, Dinah, the warm-hearted housekeeper and cook, Simon, her childlike teenage son, Iron Henry, a mysterious and reticent woodsman, Sister Peace, a bearded nun with an interesting past, Dr. Fell, a comically confused plague doctor, the handmaidens, 3 of the original inhabitants of the castle from the Curse of Brambly Hedge days, and Sir Chess, a knight destrier who travels to tournaments around the world and is a bit of a ladies' man. We're also introduced to the variety of fairy tale creatures who live in the castle and who play an active role in the lives of the other characters. There's a saucy water sprite who flirts with the characters and delights in playing tricks, and a variety of house sprites and ghosts who are, by turns, helpful and mischievous. There's even a demon from hell who just wants someone to talk to. Linda Medley draws on a variety of storytelling traditions to create the world of Castle Waiting. Characters and creatures from European folklore, from Slavic and Scandinavian mythology, the Arabian Nights, and even Catholic mythology coexist in this world. The narrative of Castle Waiting moves fluidly between dramatic flashbacks and the comfortable domesticity of the present, with characters often telling stories of great loss and sadness while completing some mundane household task or the other. The storytelling is well paced, and unlike the information dumping that's present in a lot of fantasy narratives, the world unfolds slowly, allowing you to piece it together bit by bit. This slow revealing of the world, characters and all, is one of the most pleasurable reading experiences I've had. And it's a great introduction to the subtlety and nuance that's possible in comics. For someone like me, who didn't really read comics until a few years ago, this was eye-opening. Castle Waiting is one of the most charming comics I've read, but it also is one of the most effortlessly feminist stories I've encountered. The story centers on Lady Jane, but it also deals with ideas of gender roles, societal expectations, and relationships between the sexes in ways that steer clear of boring stereotypes and cliches. Not only are the women strong and independent, but the male characters deal with questions of masculinity in complex and interesting ways. They're full of kindness, gentleness, and empathy, and they're never disrespectful to the women in their lives. It's also significant that the focus is firmly on domestic life. While we're shown that there are robbers, wars, petty criminals, and oppressive social hierarchies outside the castle, we're also shown that within the castle is warmth, love, and friendship. Medley reinforces this with a number of narrative red herrings. She sets up a moment of crisis, and often in the very next panel or page, she diffuses it, subverting our expectations of disaster with the opposite. This isn't to say that there aren't problems that need solving. These run the gamut from smaller things like a leaky roof or a goat who just won't stay in her pen, to financial problems and the dark influence of the characters' pasts on their present. But these problems are dealt with resourcefully, with good humor and empathy, and this is what makes this series so very appealing. In this way, the castle becomes a sanctuary not just for the characters, but for the readers themselves. This is a series that glories in small joys, in everyday humor, in the delights of new relationships and domestic life. This makes it a very pleasant alternative to the grand narratives and high drama that fill so many of the books, TV shows, and movies out there. The other thing that makes the series stand out is its art style. The art is clear and appealing and oddly familiar, inspired as it is by woodcuts and illustrations in 19th and 20th century works of fairy tale and fantasy. The art moves easily between the whimsical and the everyday, adding to the story's overarching theme that magic and the mundane coexist in the characters' lives. A well-told story, rich world building, and beautiful art are what make Castle Waiting one of my favorite comic series of all time. Although the story does reach a conclusion of sorts in Volume 2, Linda Medley is working on more Castle Waiting stories and is running a Patreon campaign to fund this. If you fall in love with the series the way that we have and want to support her, there's a link to the campaign in the video description. And that's all for today. If you've enjoyed this video, let us know what you thought in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.